simulate with me a contract negotiation situation in which you push back on everything I want to say or want to have, and you give me arguments why you can't do it?
Sure, I can help with a contract negotiation simulation. Let's start with a specific point you'd like to negotiate. What's one of the key terms?
Yes, let's start with the affiliate clause. So what you send over is an affiliate language according to which my company plus my affiliates can use the software. But what I need is something that includes my parent company because I'm just the buying center here. Can you do this?
I see your point. However, including the parent company might require a different agreement due to the scale and nature of the business. We can explore tailored solutions for your parent company that align with their specific requirements. Let's discuss alternative options that could benefit both your affiliate and parent company.
Okay, if I don't have an option there, how about the payment terms? You have 14 days after date of invoice. What I need is 30 days after receipt of invoice.
I understand your preference for 30 days after receipt of the invoice. Our standard terms are 14 days for streamlined cash flow. However, we can consider accommodating your request if we can ensure timely invoicing and payment processes. Let's find a middle ground that works for both parties.
How would you do this ensuring proper payment flow?
To ensure proper payment flow, we could agree on clear invoicing timelines, perhaps with automated reminders. We could also set up a direct communication channel to quickly resolve any invoicing issues. This way, we can facilitate a smooth payment process that meets both our needs.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. This very provocative video, thanks to Carlos Fernandez. I don't know who is, but he talked about this video, and I think it's a very interesting approach to kick off this table. We are not going to have formal presentations because there are amazing CVs in this table, but I want you to describe yourselves, not about your titles, because all the people can find them in LinkedIn. Introduce yourself by saying you love most about what you do. Surprise. You begin wherever you want, if you want to.
Sure. So I'm Tom Martin, and what I love about what I do is that I get to live and work in a place of entertaining my curiosity and experimenting with things. And to me, that keeps me young at heart and learn a lot about this expanding space that we're all involved with.
Thank you very much.
I'm Tom Rice, and quite like Tom, I would echo everything he's just said. I suppose, in addition, that I have the privilege of working in an organisation which is all in on you accentuating your strengths over improving your weaknesses. So that means I can get exceptionally passionate about the things that I have great curiosity for. And in this moment in time, there probably hasn't been a better moment.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm John Bartman. What do I love most? I sit in the middle between law firms' in-house teams and innovative tech. So what I really love is when you see an idea and you show it to a lawyer and the lawyer kind of gets it, and then you start to see how tech is making a real difference.
Okay, thank you. Manu?
This is Manuel. I'm a former lawyer, former partner at a traditional firm. I've been 20 years in the dark side, and now in the bright side of the force, innovating in a very complex industry, which is legal, and top-tier legal services in particular. What I love most of what I do is we've built a high-end community of lawyers, world-class lawyers who practice law independently, and we empower those lawyers to work and compete with top law firms to deliver better services, more efficient, more specialized to top clients, and at the same time give access to those corporates to world-class talent. That's what I love most of what I do.
Thank you very much for all of you, because it's a little surprise. And for you, no, because we are smoking yesterday. And I told you. But the thing is, during this table, we are going to talk about technology, but also about humans, about people, about the importance, and how we are thinking about how can we begin with a question. And I think it's very interesting seeing the last video. What are the biggest fears you encounter when it comes to adopting emergency technologies in the legal industry? What do you begin?
I mean, I'll happily jump into that one.
Okay.
I mean, but I think over here is probably where you're going to get a better answer. The biggest problem that I find is the hesitancy from lawyers to take on something new. You know, they're busy people. It's a busy environment. And the idea of, I have to retrain people, I don't have the time, the effort, the energy in so many places. And of course, it's different wherever you go. However, there is this, is it going to work? Is it actually going to be a pain? Am I going to be able to implement it well? And lawyers are taught from an early age that kind of everything's wrong. And I'm here as the lawyer to make it right. So technology kind of goes against that, because that's not what lawyers have been trained to do. Lawyers have been trained to look at things, understand them, and make them right.
I never fail.
You never fail. No, lawyers are never, you know, at the end, are never wrong because they follow the process. And technology kind of comes in the middle of that and sort of says, well, I can help you on this, which goes against a lawyer's nature.
Okay.
Yeah, I think something that's not unique to this profession, but to all, is like this fear of the unknown. I think we're entering a process of new experimental learning, which is quite distinct actually within the legal profession in terms of what we prioritized previously. And as we do that, we're sort of wedded to the economics of the past, and the way law firms certainly work outside of the in-house environment. They have a legitimate fear, which is around the economics of their practice. And then you're pushing them into the unknown, and yeah, I completely get it. I think with all of these things, it's primarily about their tech literacy. And I think more and more, particularly as over the last 18 months, I've seen more and more people really get into this and really trying to stay on top of what's happening. Because as soon as you start to see opportunities for where you might be able to sort of find your niche in that space. But the unlearning is the perhaps uncomforting thing. But with that there's a lot of opportunities out there now.
Okay. Can you?
Well, I would add to Tom's point. I mean, lawyers tend to be very cynical and skeptical about things. You know, they're actually prepared to be that way, right? And that makes total sense when you're innovating and disrupting an industry, and people tend to suspect whenever technology is going to be the right tool to solve all problems, right? I think the easy answer on fears is probably many lawyers fear losing relevance. I think that's probably something which, I think it's, you know, we're humans. I think I get it. I think there's a terrible misconception regarding, potentially with respect to generative AI, how really the tool and the different tools available will be more, not really replacing lawyers, but obviously augmenting how we deliver legal services and changing how legal services are delivered. My concern with respect to the new tech tools are basically two main fears. One is there's still a lot of inconsistency with the outputs. So when you add the same input to a specific tool, you and I prompt the same thing at the same time with the same tool, you would typically get different outputs. So that's probably my main fear, because that has many consequences. Obviously, that requires legal review from a qualified lawyer for any reasons that we all know. And second, the bias in the data, which can be really perpetuated by different tools, and that means that many material mistakes, many fundamental errors in data and the training data used by the different models can be perpetuated if they're trained with the wrong information, basically. So that's like the two main things. I think there's a lot of psychology behind how the sector approaches the different tools we're seeing today, and we'll see in the next few minutes. But I think that the key thing is understanding how the tool is really applicable to the specific, use case that you have as a company, as a firm, or as a legal practitioner. And sometimes people think that all the tools work, similarly for different problems, which is not really the thing.
Yeah, you just say now you have to apply to a real use cases, and this is the following question: would you share a real life use cases where technology or innovation has significantly transformed legal practice as a service delivery or wherever?
Do you mind if I speak to the whole fear
Of course,
element?
sorry.
Okay. Because everyone has kind of talked about the fear, and it's definitely been something that's been out in the world since 2 years ago, right, when ChatGPT dropped. In talking about that, I just want to give you a little background. So I have 25 years as a practicing lawyer, licensed in California. I founded my own legal technology company 8 years ago, and we now have a generative AI layer for the past 3 years. And lastly, I'm teaching generative AI at Suffolk Law School now as a professor. So with that perspective, I would say that the fear is well-founded, but on the other hand, I think what takes all of us through fear to get to the other side is the courage, and in this case, the courage needed to survive, right? And the survival is that we need to learn how to master this and use it to our advantage. Not just to worry about it taking jobs, because the jobs are going to change. People will lose jobs as they're currently defined. They will just have different definitions. We'll be doing different things. I hope we're doing different things, right? If we're going and doing the mechanical stuff that we used to do, then it's going to be a very boring job. So I think our jobs will become more interesting. But I think we need to fight through that fear and be courageous and curious to be able to leverage this technology to our best advantage.
Yes, we told yesterday about this type of things in the table, also of the new education, the new roles, the new learning, and it's very interesting. And coming back to use cases, can you share something?
Yes, I mean, I can only speak for what we have implemented at TravelPerk. And this won't be unique, and this won't cause brainwaves across the audience, but one reason why legal teams are particularly well placed to harness the benefit of this technology is because we've been creating knowledge, working at the intersection of teams, since our inception, particularly in the in-house world. So when you're the only team that's preoccupied with recording how a process works or how the interaction within another team works, you actually build up nascently over time incredible organizational knowledge. So the corporate wiki at TravelPerk started as the legal wiki and has built out since. And it's been a great platform to change our reputation internally, because when your content curation strategy has such a visible impact on the wider business, it's quite remarkable. You then get into the video that we've just watched before. We have been developing coaches, and those coaches, we don't, produce synthetic audiovisual output like that, but those coaches are there to coach our internal clients through negotiations, so they can understand feedback they get in, and they can produce intelligent output on the way out. And that's usually in our high volume interactions with suppliers or prospect customers. Those are two, and I won't bore you with more because there's better panelists than me.
And I think this is really interesting, by the way, that Tom brings up, because there are certainly companies, in-house teams that are really forging the way and really trying stuff and really moving forward. And there are so many people that sort of sit back and say, well, I'm not big enough, or I couldn't do this, or that tech's not made for me, but it's great for TravelPerk. It just won't work for me, without even exploring it. And the people that are pushing the boundaries are the people that are getting the most at the moment. And that's what makes it an exciting sector. It's the same in the law firms. So the first law firms, Adelshaw Goddard in the UK, have 80 people now on an R&D team, just looking at innovation. 80 people. It's like unheard of. Clifford Chance are pushing the boundaries. They're really looking everywhere about how can we improve. And that's really great because people will say, well, that's Clifford Chance, and they're a huge law firm. They're doing great, and TravelPerk, yeah, they're moving forward. What I think technology has come to, though, especially legal technology, especially Gen AI, but it doesn't always have to be Gen AI, it can just be machine learning AI, which has been around for years. It has a place everywhere. It's cross-jurisdictional. It doesn't matter that we're in Spain today or that we'll be in Venezuela tomorrow. Finding the right solutions that work for you, they are out there. And there are quite a few of these bigger guys. You know, Leia were up here before, making an amazing entry into the Gen AI market. It started in Sweden, and now it's everywhere in the world. All of these solutions are out there somewhere to hit, whether you're a small law firm, you're a medium-sized law firm, you're a big law firm, or you're a small in-house team, you know, solo GC, or you've got a big team. It's finding the right solutions that becomes really important, and then working on how do we implement those.
In terms of use cases, and to your prior question, we at Ambar, we are a highly vetted legal community, bringing together top 1% independent lawyers across the world. So we're obsessed with vetting the expertise of lawyers and having a very structured information regarding 20 years of prior experience of a M&A lawyer, litigation lawyer, regulatory lawyer. That's super unstructured, very difficult to really put into a trained data set. And we're actually doing a lot of things. We have 12 engineers in-house building that sort of end-to-end platform to make sure we are able to structure the expertise of each and every lawyer and then be able to staff and match projects to the right lawyer because of their expertise, because of their industry knowledge, but also because of their soft skills and, you know, cultural fit with that client. So we're actually, in terms of use cases with technology, building that end-to-end platform to make sure that we're vetting lawyers correctly and very precisely and very objectively, and at the same time staffing and matching the right project to the right lawyer on a very objective and very, very agile manner, right? That's like the first use case we're doing. That's not AI driven. That's, you know, there's an algorithm behind that. There's a lot of in structured data there, but there's like really disrupting in an industry which tends to have a lot of information, but very unstructured data. That's like the first thing we do basically, and we're obsessed with.
Yeah.
Really quickly, the use case, is it on? Yeah, there it is. Okay. So the use case has been really popular for our customers, which include one U.S. court, several legal aid organizations, and we have a legal insurance company that we work with. But the really practical use that they're all excited about and seen a lot of value from is actually pretty simple in terms of AI. It's you connect a knowledge base to a conversational UI, a chatbot, and let people go at it, asking natural language questions. So basically unlocking their information. It's not, you know, for everyone here, it's not brain surgery, but it is extremely useful and allows them to use it both internally for their staff, but also externally for customers. And that's been very popular.
Yeah, I think that we have a question, but I think that you answer with your with interventions about thinking about what is the first technology do you think to implement or to have. And I like to say not always is artificial intelligence in the beginning. They don't have to normally because you don't have knowledge management, you don't have the data, and also. But as the tech boom continues, which areas of the legal business do you see as most ripe for disruption? How can legal professionals proactively also adapt this change? This is a double question.
Wow, that's a big question.
Yeah.
So let me kind of go left a little bit on that. One place that we found that it's extremely disruptive in a helpful way is not necessarily legal per se. It's administrative, right? So a lot of the time when we have these discussions, we're talking about AI for legal research, contract drafting, like all of those kind of standard things. But we still work in offices, and we still have people answering our phones or doing administrative work, and there's a lot that could be accomplished with AI taking up a lot of those job skills. One thing that we have is you could spin up an AI receptionist within 5 minutes, and it's answering your phones, taking messages, routing calls, and you don't have to have that overhead anymore. It also gives you much more intelligent, like very fine-grained controls over that flow of information. So it's little things like that that you put in place, and you actually become an AI-first company, not just in name, but actually how the data is flowing through your organization.
Yeah, and so one thing that I've sort of grown in passion for is over the last 2 years, and quite rightly actually, it's where the money flow is. Like, we work for big corporates, we work for law firms. There's a lot of investment capital. The big shareholders can see the productivity gains that could come from its deployment. And so it's natural that our early use cases have been in this field. But if I think about the legal system as a whole, we've all rushed to focus in on an area of the law where there's already a lot of high intelligence. And if you look at the composition of a legal system, and if I can radically oversimplify it, and you can indulge me on that, you have an access. Do I know the laws I'm subject to as a member of the state or a corporate operating in it? You have an analysis phase. How do they apply to my particular set of circumstances? And I would say that most of us in the room are in that analysis phase. And then you have judicial process and adjudication. And there is a lot of high intelligence in analysis. And that's where all the Gen AI capital has gone to date. But there's not very much intelligence in access, and there's not very much intelligence in judicial process and adjudication. I can mainly speak from the UK, but in the UK, there was a statistic last week that said for a basic routine assault trial now takes 530 days to be heard and sentenced. And the analysis phase of that is probably about 3 days, being conservative. So we're going to make 3 days go to 1, but that case will still be 527 days. So I think we need to start thinking more. And we have the privilege as lawyers, because we're responsible beyond our corporates out to really start thinking about how we can have positive changes across the entire system.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. To bring it to a law firm in-house kind of perspective, I think the life of a junior lawyer is just shockingly bad. So you come out of university, you go to law school, you get your first job, and you're just confronted with a really horrible environment. So it's very hierarchical. And it means that you're given the real grunt work at the beginning. You know, you're staying in the office till late, you're working weekends because, you know, a partner said you've got to do X, Y, and Z. And that's always a junior that's doing that. And I think where we're looking at the tech boom, and this is where people are saying, oh, yeah, you're going to take jobs away from lawyers. But actually, you're not. You're just going to make a junior's life much easier with a tech boom. So if you look at, VLEX have been talking today about how legal research is changing. That's making a massive difference. So people are not spending so long researching something. If we look at contract drafting, a lot of which is done at a junior level at the beginning, draft me this contract. Again, that's where the tech boom is going to make their lives much easier. It's not going to change the dynamic because the partner's still going to have to get involved and write that. On an in-house side, how do people communicate with the in-house team? You know, you put this junior in charge at the beginning and you say, right, you're going to field all of the, you know, at legal.com for the in-house team. And that's like a list this long. How is the tech boom going to make that easier? Well, actually, it can start answering some of those questions that people have that send through to the legal team and say, can I take this person out for dinner? And tech boom is then going to make that bit a little bit easier. So I think where we look at the tech boom, it's possibly not even firm-wide, or it's not the whole in-house team. It's bits and it's pockets. But with each one of those, suddenly becomes bigger adoption, lives become easier, law firms work better and can make more money, in-house teams work better and can do more things. And I think that's where the technology boom is really going to help.
But that can also have an impact on how services are built, right? Legal services as such, because I get where you're coming from, and I agree. Not only the work done by juniors, the work done by many lawyers in many law firms is mainly data review, document review, due diligence, data extraction, comparing documents, comparing deals with prior precedents. But that's like 50, 60% of the legal work, right? If we're doing that through a very enhanced technology, whatever that is and how it looks, we'll see. That's 50, 60% of the legal work currently charged by law firms to clients. So that's really disrupting in terms of how the whole legal service delivery system will be transformed, right? And I'd love to hear your thoughts regarding how's that going to change, because that's super powerful in terms of how clients will expect legal services to be delivered to them, which is now sort of a mystery, right? How that SBA is being drafted, or how that litigation complex court case is going to be, analyzed with prior precedents. But now, probably in many, in the short term, we will have the ability to disclose that even quicker and without any sort of, mystery as we have now, right?
Yeah, there's always going to be litigation. It's always going to be happening. So it's more a point of how you can deal with the matter that's in front of you in the best possible way. And we're not talking about the computer answering it or the solution answering it. However, simple redlining. And again, if you look at the write-offs that law firms, especially, obviously in-house teams are not billing, but if you look at the write-offs that law firms have, because we can't actually have that, we can't put down that much for X, means that you become even more profitable. So I think that there's always going to be a place for doing things quicker, better, and it doesn't mean that the law firm's going to bill less. Actually, it just means that we can do more of that work.
With less.
With less.
Right.
Somebody want to request? Where are the transformational gains in general when you use technology or when you implement the technology? What do you think?
Well, I don't think it's unique to generative AI, except I think the speed with which you can realize productivity gains is obviously drastically shortened. But I think my perspective on this is that generative AI in particular is pretty good at compounding the middle out of a problem. But it needs a problem. And it needs a defined scope of what that problem is. It needs some contextual idea of what the output should look like. And so for me, when I think about that more holistically, I think I just see humans on the edges exploring the boundaries of new problems and new innovations and new feedback from customers and being empathetic to a particular client's sensitivity and framing new problems. And then I do see a sort of cognitive co-resourcing model of this technology compounding the middle out of them.
Yeah. To design thinking about the center, the client, I think also is exactly that you talk about it.
Lawyers are very good at this. Lawyers are very good at divining the scope of a problem, providing great context and different things like that.
Yeah. Someone who wants to add something?
So one thing this brings up, so I was a philosophy major undergrad, and sometimes I think take a few steps back from a situation like this. And I think what a lot of solutions have been lately have been where they're solving a specific issue where they take like contract drafting and they put an AI layer on top of it. And it's a bit of a case of building a faster horse, right? Where, great, that's a great application, but how's that transformational? Is it really getting us to do things differently, fundamentally? And that's the bigger question I think we're going to be dealing with over the next 10 years, is how is this technology going to actually free us from our current conception of how we provide legal services, and whether or not they're even required to flow through lawyers in the same way. I know that sounds scary at first, but it also means that there's additional opportunities, which is what we're here to talk about. There's other business opportunities besides just the billable hour that we've been doing today. So that's what I think of when I think of transformation, is that there's many more unlocked opportunities that we have ahead of us.
And you think it would be centered around document review, due diligence, and also contract drafting, you said? Or because I'm a little bit skeptic about contract drafting still. I mean, I think it's very imperfect as it is. The state-of-the-art technology is not really capable of drafting complex documents or complex litigation documentation. I get it that in terms of document review and comparing documents, I think it's generative AI is really, great in creating pattern recognition and creating links between the structure of documents and relationships between different documents. You can fine-tune the model and you can even improve and enhance that. But other than that, right now, I don't think we are there in terms of delivering something which is meaningful for law firms or legal in-house teams. But I'm curious to hear if, other than that, in terms of contract drafting, legal reasoning, or more complex stuff, I've heard things about, how quantum computing will kick off in maybe 5 to 10 years' time, and that will change, the game, and that will be super disruptive. But I think that as of today, or maybe in the next few months, I don't see that coming yet, if I can put it this way. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think one thing that we haven't talked about coming up is that generative AI, we're all seeing this as being an amazing thing. It's great, it's fantastic. It's not going to be long before the criminal element starts realizing, well, how can I start using this new technology for really bad stuff? Yeah. How am I going to utilize the ability to create personas and to start to create, exactly as we saw at the beginning of this, which is, how can I start to really utilize Gen AI for really bad things? And so I think that there's going to be a real move towards governance, risk, and compliance. Someone said to me recently that insurers for large law firms are soon going to stop cyber attack insurance policies because it's so utterly easy to now break in, and therefore we can't keep on paying out for things like that, which means that there's going to be a huge move towards governance, risk, and compliance, and working with the right tools in order to make sure that we all stay safe as law firms and in-house teams. I think it's going to be a really interesting kind of move.
Yeah, well, the complex contract, I think is very difficult to have this right now. But yesterday, I remember we was in other event in Repsol, and Pablo said that, okay, I know that I can use technology to make drafting and whatever. If I talk with my lawyers and they say that they are not going to give me a contract for a month, I'm going to say it's impossible, and I'm not going to contract them any time. Okay, I think it's not for complex, but I think the client is beginning to think that is more easy.
Yeah.
And it can be a risk also, but I think that there are a lot of possibilities, but we have to accelerate with this because the client they're like, okay, if I have whatever technology and I'm using it and it's very powerful for drafting, I ask to the lawyers or the people who I contract do the same, and I think it's very complicated.
I think there's a difference though between what we as lawyers perceive as transformational and what our clients or customers will perceive as transformational. Yeah. So we're talking about, is it contract drafting, contract review? And yeah, right before our eyes, we see magic, something that we think we honed a craft for and got so good that we could make something dance with a couple of days of serious thought can now happen in front of our eyes. Maybe I agree slightly with Manuel, but we'll get there on a journey and we'll be doing it in an hour or two soon. But will that be transformational for the client? I don't think they see it the same way as us. And one thing that I keep coming back to this, but what happens when they go to enforce that contract that took an hour or two to produce? They're still going to do a dance with the legal system that might produce some entertaining, long and lengthy delay outcomes. So I think we need to think quite holistically around what their perception of transformation is. Because the problem of not addressing the legal system question is the big trust in institution questions right now, trust in expert questions. And I do think we need to start thinking more expansively on that point.
By the way, on the drafting side, so I'm going to be real quick because they're here today as clause-based, and I think that's really interesting how that they've seen that not in a Gen AI way, but as in a way of you have a body of work that you work from, and we're going to extract clauses from that for your complex drafting needs, which is based upon what you've done before. Obviously, that means you need to have the body of work that you can then go into to extract clauses. But yeah, Gen AI and complex drafting, I think, is very different to what clause-based do. And it's a fantastic solution for complex drafting in a different way. Sorry.
I think what Tom and Sara was saying is, if I get it right, is there will be a shift from the law firms to the clients in terms of who has the leverage and who has the information regarding how complex specific legal service is, and second, where is the information which will be used to train the data or used to deliver that legal service? And I've heard that theory, and I like it. I think it makes sense. Many top clients, I think, a lot of companies are even more innovative right now than many law firms. I mean, I see many companies really innovating and really having the ability to understand how a specific technology can work and how it can deliver better services. And at the end of the day, that can mean that those major clients could have their own workspaces and law firms being plugged into their technology to work within their sort of ecosystem and train their data and train their documentation and work with their documents and precedents. That could be super disruptive because you would obviously make companies less captive of law firms, which is something that sometimes happens. So that's major, and I like it. I hope that happens.
I think sometimes what's transformational for clients is really basic stuff. I think it's pretty transformational for a client if we answer the phone, right? So if Gen AI could make that possible, which it can, that's fantastic. That's a big win for clients. As lawyers, I think we have much, much higher standards about what transformational is. How do we define that? What are we really, we spend so much time on that. That for our clients, it's just, how quickly do I get the document, like you were saying? Mm. And yeah, a lot of it, they're going to end run us because they can. But that opens up business opportunities too, because let's say they go to ChatGPT, they get a contract. Okay, great. It's not going to work all the time. It's going to lead to some problems. We all know that. So because we all know that, why don't we just jump right in there and create our own product, which is a much better version of what ChatGPT would give to them, that, yes, we sink some costs into creating it in the first place, but a couple of benefits. Number one, it makes that relationship even more sticky, right? Because they're going to be dealing with this thing on a day in, day out basis. They'll be thinking of you first. And then secondly, for those smaller things, you don't have to waste your time putting together an NDA for them. They could just get it through the AI that you created for them. So we should make it work for us, not work against us.
Okay, we have the last question because we have 6 minutes. And we always talk about the fears about the technology, but I want to give to close this panel. Think about what may be the risks and consequences to our business if we don't address currently the text boom.
That's a great one. if you don't mind me jumping on there.
There you go.
All right. So a statistic that's important to know. So in the States, there's Clio, right, which is a case management software, and they put out this report every year. And so one of the big statistics that came out of that, and forgive me if you've already heard of it, but last year in 2023, the adoption of AI was at 19%. Not everyone voraciously using it, but just there was a spectrum of usage, but overall it was 19% last year. That's gone up to 79%, right? So the risk isn't staying behind, because we're not talking about one of these smooth adoption bell curves like we've seen before. We're seeing one that is a huge uptick, and so you really need to be part of that early adopter crowd to take advantage of this. So I would just say keep that in mind when you're making your decisions, because just waiting is not the best option.
And do you think that being the first is better than being like second first or third first, and see others how?
Good question.
Because I've heard a lot of theories regarding that. I mean, I don't want to be the first. I want to see others dealing with it. And I've seen that specifically in this sector a lot. And a lot of people consciously knowing what you're just saying, but let's see how this company is really dealing with this, or let's see how this law firm, or let's ask the law firm to, innovate and train and use and, make mistakes. And then they'll tell me the outcomes. Does that make sense? Or
I mean, you miss out on gaining all that experience,
right? Yeah,
and polishing up your own product, and there is going to be a new incumbency, right? That is created by the people that are leading that that generation of new services, new AI imbued services, and so you'll lose out on that. Other people will gain traction and build a moat around it.
Yeah, but it's very hard, for a law firm who has associates building $2,000 the hour in New York, and collecting those hourly rates very, very well, to innovate and dedicate time to train technology. It's very hard. I've been there, and it's hard to really convince the upside on that. And the same with companies who are very busy with limited budgets, with a lot of constraints, and I know that it makes a lot of sense, but sometimes people say, I would have, engineers in my team, in the legal team. I have unlimited budget to train people, or even time availability for people to, train or experiment, but I can't. It's hard.
I think on that, though, I think the biggest risk an organization like that runs is because of the early adopters, or those that sort of got in the second wave. One thing we're finding, and I know some very forward-thinking law firms are also finding this as well, is as the cost of information supply drops, demand actually increases. So people actually want more outcomes now, and they want to experiment at conversational interfaces, like Tom mentioned, a lot more with greater frequency. And therefore, if you're not part of that wave experiencing that rise in demand, then you're drowning, presumably.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love your point, by the way. Lawyers never want to be first. So they always want to be first, second. It's interesting. Look, I sit on the board of the European Legaltech Association. Very proud to be doing that, because it kind of covers the whole of Europe. It's our second year of running a generative AI report. Comes out in a couple of weeks. If you're not members of ELTA, please, everybody should look at becoming members of ELTA. And what's really interesting, because having seen the results that are coming from nearly 500 lawyers across Europe, it's so different to the year before when we started it, but there still is this mistrust element, because quite a few of the questions were, have you tried it? Well, yeah, we've all tried it now. So in the first year, it was some people had tried it, now everyone's tried it. But what stayed kind of interesting and static was, do I really trust it? No, I'm still not really trusting it. And then the last question, and again, this also had the same answers really, was, am I going to adopt here? And all of them said, yeah, within the next 12 months, I'm definitely going to do something, which did mirror what they'd said the year before. So there still is this sitting on the fence of, are we going to adopt? Are we going to adopt? Yeah, we're definitely going to. Well, maybe we'll do it next year. So I think people are going to lose ground if they don't. You will start to see other legal teams, other law firms doing things quicker, better, faster.
With your question, Manuel, 2 years ago we are in Legalitas, in an event of the Global Legal Tech Hub, and there are all engineers, and they say exactly, if you use the strategy now of wait and see, you are going to die. Because, yeah, because they tell that now is like not an option, because more people are using it. Okay, you have like a first area, like 2 years. Okay, we are thinking, we are testing, we are playground. But now they think that there are going to be a huge gap, something in a year or two, and the people don't only wait and see, but don't touch this type of technology, they are going to be with a very disadvantage. But I think because it's interesting.
I agree. I'm just playing the devil's advocate here.
Okay, thank you very much. I could be like an hour more hearing for you. Thanks for all, and thanks for all the people I'm here.
Thank you.